Welcome to the Motherhood Alliance podcast, the podcast dedicated to empowering moms and families on their health and wellness journey. I'm Brittany Suttner.
And I'm Andrea Rinkus. Together, we're here to explore holistic approaches that go beyond conventional medicine.
Each week, we dive into topics that matter most to you. Everything from nutrition and mental health to alternative therapies and natural living.
And whether you're a new mom navigating the early stages of parenthood or a seasoned pro looking for new ways to support your family's well-being, you're in the right place.
Even better, all of our guests are local small business owners who you can actually talk to and work with. You can learn more about today's guest and connect with hundreds of other health and wellness professionals through our informative and easy-to-use directory at motherhoodalliance.com.
Before we get started, keep in mind that this podcast is for informational and educational purposes only and is not a substitute for personal healthcare advice. Please consult your healthcare provider before making any changes based on the podcast content.
Thank you for joining us on this journey. Are you ready to help your family thrive? Let's get started. Hi, we are Britt and Drea from motherhoodalliance.com, and we are excited to welcome you to a 4-episode series with Dr. Maycee Sturino, a local chiropractor who specializes in the Gonstead technique. She and her husband, Dr. Alex Sturino, own and run Genesis Chiropractic in Appleton, and they are extremely passionate about helping families take a proactive approach to their health rather than a reactive one. Since becoming a mom herself in 2024, Dr. Maycee has developed a strong love for the birth world and especially loves caring for mamas and their kiddos. Beyond her work, Maycee loves working out, traveling, and discovering local coffee shops with her family. We are excited to have her here to not only discuss how chiropractic can benefit moms and kids, but also to dive into what makes the Gonstead technique unique, tech neck, and the effects screens are having on our spines, and more. So let's jump into today's conversation with Dr. Maycee.
Hey guys, welcome back to the podcast. We are excited to welcome Dr. Maycee back to the studio from Genesis Chiropractic. Welcome back.
Thank you.
We had a pretty good conversation talking about your story and your Gonstead method in episode 1. This episode, we really wanted to kind of dive into a more of a specific topic and talking about tech neck.
Sure.
And like digital posture and why this is a problem and how chiropractic can help and a lot more. So first of all, before we get into this, what exactly is tech neck and why is it becoming so common?
Right. So tech neck is a term that people are using now for kind of overall like upper back pain, neck pain, and it's correlating to like chronic headaches, migraines, and kind of stuff like that. So the reason that we're seeing this is because in our techie world today, a lot of people, whether they have a desk job or kids looking down at their tablets, phones, and stuff like that these days, we really have a forward rounded posture. So the shoulders are rounded forward. We're typically looking down, which is putting a lot of strain on that upper back and the neck. So the muscles have to work harder to kind of keep you upright because your body wants to keep you upright. And that can cause a lot of pain, discomfort.
Yeah. So I guess with that too, I mean, how much pressure is it when you're looking down on that phone and tablet? I mean, our head has weight to it, obviously, but I can imagine that there's a lot more pressure with that causes all this spinal change.
Yeah. So depending on kind of the angle that the head and neck are placed in, it can be up to 60 pounds of pressure.
Whoa, that's a lot.
So what I kind of explain to my patients in the office is if you were holding a bowling ball and you held it with your arms completely extended out versus if you were hugging it close to your chest, which is harder. Well, obviously, if your arms are extended out and you're holding a bowling ball, your arms are going to get very tired. So it's kind of the same when you have that forward head posture and your head is kind of further in front of your center of gravity when it comes to where your body is kind of at in space. And it can make it feel like your head is heavier. That's what a lot of patients will see is like, oh, my head feels heavy. And that's because they're so far in front out of their center of gravity. The muscles all need to work harder to kind of bring them back to center.
And do you see that on the x-rays when they say stuff like that?
Yes. So a lot of times what we're seeing on x-ray is, so you want curves in your spine when we're looking at you from the side. So in the low back, we want a forward curve. In the mid back, we want to see a backwards curve. And then in the neck, we want another forward curve, or we call it a lordotic curvature. So a lot of times what we're seeing on people's x-rays is their neck is starting to become really straight with either no curve, or sometimes we're actually seeing a reverse curve where it's starting to curve the wrong way.
I'm just trying to like visualize that. So I'm thinking about what you just said of the curves. And as I'm sitting here right now, it's like, okay, I can see the normal curve of the neck. And then I think about tilting my head down and looking at a phone and how that could be
with 60 pounds of pressure
on, how many hours a day?
Yeah.
Right. And
looking.
it's no wonder why we have patients with all these symptoms. And then the amount of patients that also are coming in with like chronic headaches and migraines. And I'm like, well, it's very correlated to that kind of ergonomics.
Is this like degenerating the neck, like the spine of the neck?
So when we're not in proper alignment or we don't have proper curvatures, what can happen is the joints, like the discs, can start to wear down faster. So we don't like to scare people with the degenerative disc disease term because it's kind of thrown around a lot, but it is a valid thing as to where if those joints are wearing down a lot, the discs are cartilage, so they're not regrowing. So that's why we want to really take care of our spine. I always tell people, like, just like you go to the dentist for your teeth health, you want to go to the chiropractor for your spine health, because you can't take a spine out and get a new one. So there's no where to go kind of once it gets bad.
When you say stuff like that, that just reminds me of, like, we talk about, movement is medicine, right?
Yes.
Moving in all directions, all planes of motion is so important, because if you're always leaning forward and always in that like tech neck position or always slumped forward, you're always going to have that same part of your cartilage and bones rubbing, right? And that's where you're seeing that. But if you're always moving or trying to move in different directions,
right,
it's going to help.
Right. And that's what I'm looking for as a chiropractor, is a subluxation. So it's basically a misalignment of the bone on its disc that's causing nerve pressure. So it's not just which bone is stuck. It also has the neurological component that we'll talk about later probably. And we did in the first episode about how it's tied into the nervous system. But we also want to make sure that certain segments in the spine are all moving as they should. I kind of explain it to patients when, like, you have one tire that's out of rotation, you have to go get your tires rotated, right? So when one is out of alignment, the rest of them all need to kind of make up for that lack of motion or kind of change in motion, and they all start to wear down quicker then. So it's kind of the same with your discs in your spine, where when the other ones kind of have to pick up the slack, quote unquote, of the one that's not moving, they can all start to wear down quicker, and then we'll see more degeneration at a faster rate.
So as somebody's spine is potentially changing with these habits, does that also limit their mobility in other areas of life? So I think about if I'm kind of if I look down a lot and now I'm trying to look to my left or my right, like, does that actually start to limit mobility when your spine is not shaped optimally?
Yeah, it most definitely can. But a lot of, like, what we talked about before is movement is medicine. So we see a lot of people in just this static posture all day long. So I always tell people there's not necessarily a perfect posture, but we want you to be moving throughout the day, because your spine is meant to move. It's meant to bend sideways, rotate. It's meant to have movement.
Right. And so, I mean, what would you recommend for many of us? Like, many of us have desk jobs. Many of us sit and have to, do work in front of the computer. What would you recommend for the majority of us who kind of are stuck in the same position all day?
Yeah, so a lot of my patients, I recommend, if they can, to get a standing desk, which is always great, because then you can also change from sitting to standing, which is good for your low back. Again, just getting different types of movement in, different postures in throughout the day. Another thing is, if you can raise your computer screen at all, we like to keep it like at the horizon, like eye level, so you don't need to look down. So I have some patients who are at work, they literally just like stack books under their monitor or laptop if they can, so it's more like at eye level rather than kind of looking down all day.
Yeah, I bet that makes a huge difference.
Yeah, for sure.
What about even your keyboard? Because I think about a lot of people have, they may have their monitor at a correct level, but then when I think about putting my hands out, what is the proper level for a keyboard? Because if it's a little bit too high, I feel my traps kind of pulling up and causing a lot of that tension around my neck. So what's your recommendation on that?
I would say just keeping it in the neutral position. So you obviously don't want it too high where you're shrugging your shoulders, and you don't want it too low where you have to like reach for it and bend forward and be able to type. So kind of just whatever feels neutral for you, which may be different for everybody, but we want you to be in a neutral rested posture. We don't want your muscles to have to work overtime, because it's just your postural muscles that should be working, not anything else.
Yeah, and those are really great tips. I like how you can kind of apply those at work. And obviously chiropractic is going to play a role in trying to combat this tech neck as well. So are you able to kind of reshape the spine if it's, obviously somebody would have to start with changing some habits.
Yes.
That's going to be the first step.
I mean, that's like the main
That's
thing.
the big thing.
Yes.
Yeah. But is it almost too late if somebody has a straight neck or a reversed curve, or is that something that you can actually help reshape?
So we always tell people in our office it's never too late to see a chiropractor. Whenever you start is a great time to see a chiropractor. So when it kind of comes to stuff like a straight neck or a reverse curve, what we commonly tell people is my goal as a chiropractor is not to make your x-rays look perfect and pretty. It's to make you function better. So by adjusting you, obviously you're going to start functioning better. So we may never get to a textbook normal cervical curvature, but that's okay because normal is different for everybody. But as we do see as we start to adjust, typically even the upper back, and a lot of times it's not even the neck, that those neck curves do start improving. And they're correlated with a lot more symptoms than just neck pain, headaches. All those nerves that come out from those areas in your neck go to different organs, glands, tissues. So it's a lot more than just the pain aspect of it too.
And so somebody who is kind of identifying with this, chiropractic is going to be a good step. I like how we already talked about work because a lot of us are sitting a lot during the day. But then what else would you do if you had or recommend to a patient who came in and is combating this? Are there some specific exercises, like workout exercises that they should be doing? And we can kind of chime in here a little bit too with our personal training background. But what else can we do in our everyday life to help combat this? Because phones are not going away and computers are not going away. And, even if you're talking about moms, even just looking down at your kiddo, if you're nursing or hunching over to change things in everyday life is going to be affecting it. So do you have any other tips? If I was your patient and I'm struggling with this, what else would you tell me to help combat this in my life? Yeah.
So obviously we tell patients that bending forward is just a part of life. You can't go through the rest of your life not bending forward. So one thing that we really teach patients to do is strengthening their back muscles, because again, most of our society, our population is in that forward rounded posture. So kind of combating that is strengthening your upper and mid back. So whether it's using dumbbells, bands, barbells, machines, getting different angles when you work your back, different exercises is going to be really important.
Yeah. And I would also add opening up that chest too at the same time, stretching out the chest because we tend to have a tight chest. If we have a stretched out back, we have a tight chest.
Yeah, that's another thing I tell patients too is just find a corner of a room and do this for a few seconds a day. You kind of do a W with your arms up on the wall and you kind of just lean into that corner of the wall. You're not forcing it, so you're not putting yourself into pain or anything like that. But you're just really letting it get a deep stretch out here in front. Just
and it feels good
few times
too.
a day. Yeah, it does.
And actually, that's a great thing to incorporate throughout your workday.
Yes.
Yeah.
I always tell people the importance of work breaks, whether they're having tech neck pain or not. Because like we said, your spine needs to move. And that's actually how your discs get their nutrition. It's called imbibition. It's just a fancy term for basically getting their nutrition through movement. So that's obviously why we want to make sure the spine is moving too as chiropractors, and we're correcting those subluxations so those discs can stay healthy.
That's an interesting way of, that's obviously a true thing, but it's a very interesting thing to think about.
Yeah.
As well.
Well,
and movement really is medicine.
Yeah, literally.
It takes it one step further though, because I know like anyone else who's maybe sitting at a computer and they're like, oh, I know I should take a break, but I have so many tasks to do. And then your brain gets busy. It's like, actually, this is really important for that exact reason that you said. Like if you give that different perspective, it makes it more of a priority in your life. Yeah.
I always tell people even 30 seconds, a lot of people will be like, oh, I need to take a 10-minute work break. I don't have time for that. I'm like, no, even if it's 20, 30 seconds, get up from your desk, maybe walk a few steps, kind of stretch it out, and then sit back down because a little bit is better than nothing.
I read something and I probably should have looked it up to see how true it was. But if you do this, it's not going to be a bad thing. If you do, 5 breaks or something like that, like take 5 breaks throughout the day and it's 10 squats. To just do 10 squats, body weight squats, that equals like a 30-minute walk, something like that. It's just like the movement of it and like the motion and things like that.
Yeah.
So whether or not it really equals a 30-minute walk, I don't know, but it would be good to be doing something, even if it's just 10 squats 5 times throughout the day.
Yeah,
you know?
I mean, little bits add up too. So even if you do a little bit for 30 seconds, but you're doing it throughout the day, that could add up to 10 minutes or whatever it may be.
It's more than what you'd be doing normally.
Exactly. Exactly.
One thing that I know helps me with my just like neck posture is if I think about taking if there was a string tied to the back of my head and almost like it got pulled up toward the ceiling, like elongating my neck. And another way to kind of get that same position is tuck your chin ever so slightly. So I'm not looking down. I'm not like doing tech neck type, like a turn of my neck here. It's just more of tucking that chin in and lifting the back of my head. Oh, that gives like so much relief in the back. I actually find myself doing this more when I drive because for some reason I like sink into my neck and I kind of lift my chin when I'm driving. I'm like, tuck my chin. Oh, that feels so much better.
Well, something that we've always said too is eavesdropping, right? So
pretend you're eavesdropping.
Pretend you're eavesdropping, pretend like in the back of the seat, you're driving or whatever, and just behind you, you can hear somebody whispering. You're like, oh, what is that? Yeah. What are you doing? Like, even if you just think about like, what are you doing? You instantly straighten up into that like invisible string position that Britt was talking about.
I always tell patients like there's a headrest for a reason and it's to rest your head. So if you don't feel your head on that headrest and you feel really hunched forward, that's like a good cue too. Like, I wanna feel my head rested against the headrest at least just a little bit, because then I know at least I'm sitting upright.
Yeah, that's good too.
Okay, here's kind of a different type of question. What are your thoughts on those posture straps? Because I've seen these. Are they gimmicks? Are they like a marketing thing? Are they actually helpful for correcting posture? What is your opinion on these things?
So there's a phrase that we like to use saying, if you don't use it, you lose it. So the posture straps, I would kind of say, are a Band-Aid approach. They may act as like a good reminder throughout the day, like, hey, I got to keep my posture. I got to stay upright. But a lot of times what it comes down to is fixing your overall like alignment and posture through lifestyle stuff. So like we talked about earlier, really working on your back, and strengthening there. I mean, it's good for reminders, but it's not the actual thing that we want to use to fix the posture.
Yeah, it's not going to fix your posture.
No.
So probably also don't wear it all day.
Correct.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Yeah, because then it kind of just does the work for you.
Yeah.
So then you could actually in return get even weaker.
Right.
So when something's doing the work for you, you don't have to do it. So you could in return get weaker, when in reality we want to strengthen your back.
Well, and that's the same thing we say about, postpartum or prenatal like pad or straps too, like going around your belly bands. Same thing. It's good to help and support and remind maybe, but not good long term.
Exactly. Yep. Same kind of thing.
Yeah.
Okay. And one other device I want to ask about, it's not really a device, but is one of those like foam neck extenders. So we actually have one in our house because my husband actively struggles with tech neck type symptoms. And so he was recommended this by somebody a while ago, but I wanted to get your opinion on it. It's kind of like, I don't know how to describe it. It's kind of like a foam triangle where you would lay on your back and it would go underneath your neck and kind of give you that C curve of your neck. So it's like if you put a soup can underneath your neck and you extended back laying on your back on the floor. Yeah. I don't know if you can visualize what I'm talking about here, but what's your opinion on something like that?
It's definitely not going to hurt, because that's the posture that we ultimately want to be in, and it can give some people relief. However, it's not going to be like a long-term solution. So like as a chiropractor, I'm looking for a subluxation, which is a misalignment in your spine that needs to be corrected. So it's a structural issue. So that structural issue needs to be addressed kind of before we do other things, but it's certainly not going to harm anything. No.
So when you say it helps relieve some people's, issues, does that extender help like open up the different areas in between the spine? Is that what helps it? Or what is it, the relief, like it takes the pressure off the nerves?
Not necessarily the pressure off the nerves, because that's what we're doing with the chiropractic adjustment. A lot of it more has to do with the muscles.
Oh, okay.
So when we're in that rounded forward posture, it's putting a lot of pressure on the muscles on the back of your neck and the upper back. So when we're kind of relaxing back, those muscles don't have to do as much work. So you can feel less tense is usually why people end up using stuff like that, and that in return can relieve a little bit of the discomfort. It's not going to fix the actual nerve nerve pressure unless we go through like chiropractic care and stuff like that, which is what we're looking to correct.
Got it.
Okay. And then, a bunch of us have kids who are going to be growing up in this tech age, which is really scary in some ways.
Yes.
But, how do we set our kids up for success to not have tech neck as they grow up? So, for example, kids are sometimes given iPads. Those iPads sit on their laps, and then they sit there and watch a show with it in their lap. We went to a high school basketball game last year, and halftime came, and literally this was depressing, but every teenager was sitting in the student section staring down at their phone. So what are some habits that we can help teach our kids to kind of prevent this?
One thing, so ultimately the first thing I would say is limiting screen time for kids, but I know that's not always possible. It is what it is. But really keeping the phones at eye level. So I'll kind of take one of my arms and put it under my other elbow so that my phone can be in front of my face rather than looking down. Yes, it looks kind of silly at times, but it's good for your overall posture. So I always just tell kids who sometimes don't want to listen in my office because they say, no, that looks weird. Just to kind of keep it in front of your face and at eye level so that we're not looking down all day long.
Yeah, that is a good tip. I like that. And if you guys can't visualize what she said, go ahead and rewind, think about what she said. And if you still can't get it, you just call her.
Yeah, there you go, call her.
Maybe I'll make an Instagram post about
There you
it.
should. There
And
you
if you do, give us the link and we'll put it in the show
All
notes.
right, perfect.
Okay, that's your assignment.
Okay.
So before we close out this episode, I do want to mention to all of our listeners that Dr. Maycee is offering $50 off an initial exam if you mention that you heard about her on the podcast. But also, Maycee, why don't you tell us you have some free spinal wellness classes the first Thursday of every month. What do those look like?
Yeah, so the first Thursday of every month at 6 p.m., we are doing free spinal health classes. So it's open to the public. It's not just for our patients. So you can bring a friend, family member, whoever you want. We're really going to go over what chiropractic care is and how it's good for your overall spinal health. So I know I talked about it earlier, just like you go to the dentist for your oral health, you go to the chiropractor for your spinal health. You only get one spine. So it's really about taking care of your spine with chiropractic care. We'll talk about Gonstead chiropractic care and kind of the difference that it gives patients, and then giving you things at home too to really work on your posture, different exercises, and overall just health of your spine.
Perfect. So this is a really easy way for someone to come in, see your office, ask questions without any sort of commitment, and just learn.
Yes.
I love that.
Yeah, exactly.
Perfect.
Yep.
Awesome. If somebody wants to learn about that, do they need to register? Do they find it on your website? Do they just show up?
Nope. Just show up at 6 p.m. and we'll go from there.
Cool. Awesome. Well, we are excited to have 2 more episodes with you. We'll be talking about how chiropractic is about so much more than just back pain, as well as we'll be diving into those pregnant mamas and kiddos in another episode as well. So those ones are the next ones coming up. If you enjoyed this episode, would you consider leaving a rating or review or sharing it directly with a friend who could benefit from the information? We know that you're a busy mom or caregiver, and our goal is to make your life easier by bringing tips and tricks directly from experts into your earbuds. By sharing this episode with someone you love, you can play a critical role in helping to make their life easier as well. We appreciate your time and thank you for being a part of the Motherhood Alliance family.